All right, I'll call the meeting to order.
The meeting was posted according to open meeting laws.
Roll call.
President Seeger.
Here.
Trustee Alexander. Here. Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Johnson. Here. Trustee Renucci.
Here.
Trustee Smalley. Here. Trustee Wisniewski.
Just a reminder to everybody at the meeting, we are publicizing this via Zoom, so please utilize your mics when you are talking. It's the only way for any remote attendees to hear any of our discussion. Anybody that's going to be talking during citizen participation, use the podium and the mic by hitting the button when you are speaking. So, citizen participation per Village Resolution 2017-01. Anyone wishing to address the Village Board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject can be anything, whether on the agenda or not. The Village Board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of a publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they are participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the Village Board due to involvement in the agenda item. That being said, tonight, just to let everybody know, we are not going to be making any decisions about the special assessments today, aside from discussion and direction to staff on fees. Our October 4th meeting will be where we'll actually be making any kind of decisions about that. Anybody that has something that they would like to say, we definitely want you to come up and talk about any topic you'd like. But if there are any problems with the process itself, any kind of issues that anyone has identified with the construction itself or the timelines, we'd really like you to direct a lot of those comments to staff themselves, so we can find solutions behind any of those issues. But again, citizen participation is open for any comment and any topic. So with that being said, would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? Again, please state your name and address at the podium.
Troy Andrich, 3049 Main Street, East Troy. I have a couple of things. So they came in to replace part of my sidewalk. They undermined hole that they dug, and it collapsed in. My sidewalk caved in. To reframe it and everything in the floor. They left dowel rods and stakes exposed. My neighbor's kids came over to play around those items. I had to cone it and that hole. They left it as is. Backfill. My wife was taking videos of it, and it looked like they used 3/4 inch stone instead of pea gravel. In paragraph 9.1, all backfill must be use 3/4 inch for the water and light. Damage my sewage.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was talking about,
Okay.
directing the
Yeah.
comments about any
Okay.
kind of corrections that you want done would be directed to staff that can answer questions.
Okay.
This is something that we can't
You
continue.
guys know that they damaged my water line, right? When they backfilled, when they pulled up on it, okay, I don't know if they compromised the main hookup or my service. Pulled up on it, they do any damage. We don't. So later on, if there's any kind of issues, is that my responsibility?
That's what you're gonna have to bring up at the staff meeting again, because we're not allowed to discuss that issue with you tonight during citizen participation.
Okay. Got a lot of concern about safety. Huge holes left open, no public safety. Holes everywhere. There's bids that were not coned off. Sidewalks that weren't closed, taped off. A lot of trip hazards. I mean, I see all the dust. I'm in Chicago all the time for silica. That stuff in. I have a lot of concern about it.
Thank you. Anybody else that'd like to speak during citizen participation? Next time, it's you.
Mike Zai. I just want to, hope, if you shut the water off again, can you come up with a better way to notify people? The contractor had a guy going door to door with papers and the day before, and what if people don't see it? It blows away. He was just laying them on the ground. Can we come up with a phone system, text messages, emails to all the homeowners? That's it.
Hi, I am Courtney Dorsey. I live on 2122 Church Street, and I had a few concerns. I'm not really sure what he said something about the rock being used instead of pea gravel. I can attest that they put that under what they just laid in my yard. I did see that, and they've just ripped up even more. Part of it, but, so I can attest to the rock being used. I do have concerns about the fees that we are getting. My bill is shocking, especially when I know it's not finalized, so I understand that. But I was reading in the laws, and it was saying that we as homeowners are only paying 50%, while the village pays the other 50% for these things. And so I want to know if that's being followed, and also, are we going to get a detailed what we're going to be paying for? Because I calculated what y'all had on the website, and it's inaccurate. So it looks like I'm going to be paying more than what technically I should be paying for. If you look at X amount of dollars for a linear foot or whatever it might be, it's inaccurate. So I would like those numbers to be accurate if we're going to be paying for it. And also, I know I talked to you about the legal fees. I emailed you about that. So I'm just interested to see. Of course, I don't think that's a benefit to me personally to pay legal fees. I don't understand how that is beneficial to my property. So I do have those concerns and kind of want to hear eventually answers from you guys about payment and where the village is paying and where I'm paying. I want that to be clear to us, please.
Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Gene Rosmarinesky, 2968 Main Street. Talk about the same thing they talked about before. You said, but not till October 4th, are they going to decide about these engineering fees and legal fees? Did you say that?
We're going to be discussing engineering and legal fees today at this meeting.
No, but I mean, making a decision.
Total for the special assessments, will be discussion at the October 4th meeting.
So it won't be decided today. When you guys make the decision, I would really like to see a show of hands and then recording in the minutes who voted which way, so we have a record of it. And as I said the last time, I don't see any benefit to my property personally, $1,035 for these fees. That should come out of that $750 grant money or taken out of the village general tax revenue, because everybody's gonna benefit running across these roads. Oh, by the way, they just finished the roads in front of my house today. Looking good, Jason. I also wanna compliment Jason. I've had a lot of questions. They spent quite a bit of time digging in front of my house. He was always very friendly and helpful and gave me some good answers. So, thank you, Jason, you did a good job. Hoping that some of your board members have been getting some phone calls about this. Some people, I was expecting more people here to be here, otherwise phone calls, hopefully coming to you, discussing this, shaking heads, yes. Great, I'm glad to hear it. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Hi, I'm Jenny Kuznicki, 3060 Main Street. First of all, we're all concerned about these engineering fees. And since I live on Main Street, isn't that a county road? Why isn't the county paid for something like that? They messed up my yard. I had PVC going through my yard, and per email, you guys are gonna change that situation. We'll see what happens there. But I didn't have any kind of lateral lining done per the contractor during this email. Another thing is there was good sidewalks that are all around Main Street and around Square in general, and they took them out for no reason. It was like, why they turn all these sidewalks out if they're fine? We live in East Troy. We don't want to be like Lake Geneva. We'll never be like Lake Geneva. We don't got a fancy lake and fancy stores like that. And we're more like a farming community. We'd like to keep it that way. You should help the community that has voted for you guys and not bill us so we can change our place. We don't want to change our place into like a yuppie town or something. Make our town for what we are here for and what we like, not just, let's do this, let's do that. Talk to us more. We're a community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
No, I had a question about, my water pressure has changed. Courtney Dorsey. My water pressure has changed. I'm not getting the pressure I used to since they've done the work. I'm wondering who to contact for that.
That would be me. I'll give you my number.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
My name is Kimberly Sudbrink. I live at 2042 Church Street. My concern is the $2,500 in fees that I'm getting for a sidewalk and a curb that's going in brand new that I don't want in the first place. It's taking up the first 10 feet of my yard, is taking away 2 of my parking spots. I'm going to end up having to pay $100 during the winter to get parking permits to park on the street in front of my own house, as your sidewalk is going 10 feet into my yard. And that concerns me because, again, you guys are doing what you want with my front yard. I know it's in the easement, but you're taking up every inch of it, and you're expecting me to maintain it. I'm not okay with having to pay $2,500 to do that.
Anybody else would like to speak during citizen? Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation? Anyone that would like to speak during citizen participation? If no, then I will close citizen participation and move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. On to miscellaneous business. Consideration of special assessment proposed in Resolution 2021-19 and direction to staff regarding engineering and legal fees, terms of payment, and other items from the 8/23/21 meeting.
Eileen?
Sure. I provided the village board with a memo to give you background information. And the purpose of this, again, just to clarify for everybody, is to give direction to staff, so we can finalize that resolution and the engineering. In my review of the engineering and legal fees, I explained the calculations, which I'll just, go to any questions on that. I won't. At that meeting, the village engineer did provide an option for a sliding scale to consider for legal and engineering fees due to the, varying types of assessments and the they thought that might be a better approach, but had done an approach for equal amounts based on what we have are subsequent to. Reviewed the history of the special assessments and legal fees on our schedules. And as I said, the prior two subsequent projects we've done, there has been an engineering and that was a 2018 sanitary lateral assessments, and the 2020 Clayton Bellevue project, which is similar in cost for both those projects. At those points in time, the engineering and legal. Prior to that, I couldn't locate separate engineering and legal. And prior assessments on the square, there was a mention during the public hearing, so I just wanted to bring find a definitive answer. Went over the grant funds, and as we have discussed, it was a shared grant between the village and the county, $750,000. Have in prior projects also received grant funds, such as the we will receive LRIP funds, Local Road Improvement Program grant funds. In those cases, we have never applied them directly to assessments, rather we've applied it. We asked for information also at the last meeting on the payment terms allowed. We do offer installment payments for assessments. Their examples have been I offered information on the bond issuance project. We interest cost of however, this was because the actual payment schedule is 3% for 20 years and then 2%. Breakdown of project costs assessed includes sanitary lining, sanitary cleanout, private steps and walkway, driveway approaches, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and that engineering. Breakdown, the largest cost assessed is for the sanitary attachments, which are the updated special assessments and the village. I did forget to state that the engineering and legal fees are allowed by state statute, and I did provide the link within the. Again, we're looking for direction regarding those payment terms. We had proposed in the resolution 10 years at 2%, which is what we have. And then just to
I thought it was interesting that, including the prior two projects, that we didn't have any documentation on this before. It is interesting that the amounts are pretty much in line, but as we kind of talked about in the last meeting, a lot of the sidewalk work, especially for residential, really mostly spot fixes. New sidewalks not being assessed at all, so I think to the last comment, Tim, we just got calculations correct, but, yeah, like you said, the sanitary lining and stuff, but I mean, really not that much engineering. And I mean, I think personally we ought to just get out of this equation here. And given that we really haven't historically done it, got to look at the last two projects as well and what we back to those property owners.
I think, Matt, for the differentiator for me in this project is the grant money. So that's money you don't necessarily count on, right? And I don't see why we couldn't take the engineering and legal fees out of the grant money, because we didn't really anticipate count on it. So in that regard, I think that's, like I said,
I might be wrong, Scott, but I do know that, John, you were here when we redid Beulah Avenue, remember that? 2000, it was the total rehab of Beulah Avenue from one end to the other. And I believe then we started the 10-year payback on, that also incorporated, then we decided, Jason, I think that's when we decided to do one side or the other of the properties that were on the corners. That time. For curb and gutter.
I also agree with your assessment. John's point, there's no reason why we couldn't capture those funds out of that $700,000. Yes, we should be looking back on past projects, the past two in particular, on a potential.
Would you stipulate though, Scott, that because of the grant that this can be done feasibly?
I think that that's a great avenue for us as far as payment on it, but I think that just in that we've back on what we've done in the past, we're writing it is behind that.
No, I think what you're discussing seems reasonable. Other communities also get back their engineering and legal. Sometimes it's after the fact, though, because, we've had a situation in the past where we had an environmental issue that came up with an underground tank that was discovered, and so we had to spend some additional legal and engineering. But those are all fees that you can capture after the fact. So there's nothing to keep you from doing it later if something unexpected comes up on the project. But in terms of upfront, the estimated cost, I agree. I think the legal is way overestimated, especially because your village staff, your administrators, was done a lot of the resolution type legwork. So I understand it's just a placekeeper that the village engineer puts in there. But you can capture actual expenses later rather than try and put up a big estimated number that has no basis in reality right now.
Right, well,
No, I agree with Matt and Scott as far as not charging the engineering. So, looking at the past two projects and refund.
all right, I'll make a motion on the engineering and legal fees. Make a motion that we exclude those for the County ES and Square project, or in terms of calculations for what we'll have at the October 4th meeting, and direct staff to take a look back at the last two projects and calculate refunds along with appropriate.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, moving on to,
Hang on, we need to term, I specifically did that just for that piece, so I guess on terms, I mean, so you said it's a 3-year, I'm sorry, it's a 3%, sliding scale and then 2%, is that right?
Correct, there's a certain number of years that we are paying 3% on the coupons, and then there's a certain,
The effective rate over the term is 1.66.
correct,
Due
the
to
true
premium.
interest cost due to a premium paid to the village.
I'll make a motion then to direct staff to offer, payment terms of 10 years at 2%, keeping with our, historic approach.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, consideration of We Energy's work order for street lighting installation in East Troy Business Park South, TID number 4. Jason? Oh, I'm sorry, that would be Eileen.
That would be me. So you have a proposal from We Energies in your packet for the, street lighting installation in TID 4. The work order is for $48,838.98. We budgeted $70,000 for the street lighting, so this came in. Is approved.
Were the specs changed at all? I mean, did we go to did they go to LEDs or something that dropped the cost that we anticipated? Do we know?
Did they cut out some of the lights?
No, but remember as well that this is the first section of the but it is under what we have budgeted.
Was this reviewed by parties that know what's going on so that we don't end up with a uh-oh?
Our engineer has been reviewing this for me.
Uh-oh.
The problem might...
Sorry, Tim.
I know I'm always the problem. No, so as far as the streetlight layout, it's very similar to the original business park as far as layout of poles, locations. So it's just very much keeping in along with that same standard. And I'm sure they are probably LEDs at this point.
Where did the original budgetary number come from? That might be the number that's skewed.
We'd have to look back. And I think you had actually worked with We Energies on that. It may have been a longer road, may have been...
We're gonna have
it may have been their budget versus what reality too.
We're gonna have adequate lighting out there though. We won't have a dark spot or any problems.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve the work order from We Energies for street lighting in TID 4 in the amount of $48,838.98.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Discussion? None. I'll second that one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, consideration of lawn restoration proposal for work associated with the 2019 sidewalk project to be paid from surplus funds. This one's...
Okay, so kind of the last piece of the puzzle here for the 2019 sidewalk project, looking to close it out with some lawn repair work that was kind of inferior work with the project. And the reason I'm bringing it to you is because we don't have any funds remaining from that project, so we would have to utilize some surplus dollars.
Make a motion to approve the quote from Benchmark for $11,710.
Discussion?
Where's the area at, Jason?
There's a couple of properties on Main Street and then up on North Street, adjacent to the new walk, there's properties.
Other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, discussion and direction regarding coach light at 1710 Carriage Drive. Jeremy?
So back in July, I brought to your attention that we had one residence in Sterling Oaks that never had a coach light installed in their residence property. And at that time you requested Attorney Geary to send a letter to Belinsky requesting that they put one in. Well, we have heard back from Belinsky and their legal counsel, and they pretty much said that, according to my memo, that they met their obligation of the developer's agreement, by inserting the language into
Requiring by what? I'm
by
sorry.
the owner, by the property owner. And since the property owner didn't do it, it's still on them. So they're not going to install one for us. Attorney Geary said he actually reached out and spoke with their legal counsel on the phone after we received their response, and really can't say their analysis of it is wrong. Options. One is he believes the village has the discretion not to force a light to be installed at this, given the number of years that it's went on. He also said we can also give an alternative to the homeowner. If he takes it or not, that's not really. Ask him if he'd want to do a solar one. Still different than the ordinance, because the ordinance says it needs to. Solar one you can get for $300 to $400. Probably cheaper than even running the electric line out to a new pole.
Jeremy, this is complicated because this is like the second owner of the property.
This is like the fourth owner.
Fourth owner of the property. There you go, yeah. Really should have been taken care of by the first owner of
Right.
the property, so you can't really punish
And there's
the fourth.
And there's other things that, you know, Attorney Geary put in there is that maybe that he shouldn't have gotten occupancy permit, have been caught before the inspector that it didn't have a code. All these things probably should have happened within.
A large safety issue.
No,
So-
this is not on the sidewalk side, so that even makes it, so it isn't the public safety issue, because opposite, the sidewalk side's the other side.
It's not on a corner.
Not on a corner, it's in the middle of the road, right in the middle of Carriage Drive.
But offer the solar, homeowner goes with that, then
What was your last comment, Matt? I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
offer the homeowner the solar option, and if they go for that, then we can update the ordinance verbiage so that they're not out of compliance technically. And in case somebody ever decides they want to convert something to solar, then they have that option too.
Just to be clarifying here, your ordinance right now doesn't require people to install those lights. It requires them to maintain them. So if you're going to go back and look at the ordinance, you may want to revisit that. Because right now, there's an obligation, if your coach lamp goes out and it becomes defective, you're obligated to fix it. So this particular person doesn't have one. So we can't, there's nothing to enforce in terms of what your ordinance says right now.
So the obligation actually is on the builder, theoretically.
Well, it originally was on the builder.
Right.
They put it in the restrictive covenants. I think the homeowners association would have the authority, probably, under their documents, to go back to that property owner and require them to do this. But we don't have that in our ordinance right now. Just wanted to make sure you're understanding that.
And the ordinance was written this year, so it's kind of hard to retroactive that, and the homeowners association is not active.
Regardless of the outcome, we should probably rewrite the ordinance, because so much more sense to replace a light like that solar than to try and deal with all the underground. 20 years ago, not an option. Now, altogether different.
Thank you. Yep.
All right, moving on to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 2021-09, consider Plan Commission recommendation to approve potential revisions to the comprehensive plan. We'll open the public hearing for that. Anybody that has any comment or questions, please come to the podium if you do want to discuss this item under.
Mike Zai, can you explain what we're talking about?
We have our village planner attending the meeting via Zoom, and he would probably be the best one to identify exactly what's going on here. Tim, are you available?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is a proposed change to the village's comprehensive plan, and it primarily relates to a policy that was written to kind of manage the proportion of single family to multifamily units. And it went through the Plan Commission process, and they drafted a proposed resolution. And the resolution is basically the recommendation from the Plan Commission to the village board. And in the packet, I'm not sure if everybody has a copy of that, but in the village board packet, there is resolution 2021-20, and that identifies the sections of the comprehensive plan that's being affected. And the proposed changes are shown in markup. So what is underlined is to be added to the comprehensive plan, and what is stricken would be removed. And essentially what was done was to clarify, essentially the policy would only kick in that restricts the multifamily if in fact the density is 8 dwelling units per acre or more. Okay, if a development is less than that, then that policy restriction on multifamily would not apply. But if it does apply, then there are some exemptions, and those are listed there in 1 through 5. So if a property is in the downtown core or the downtown transition area, then that would be excluded, and then they could develop at a higher density than 8 dwelling units per acre. The other exemption, so to speak, is basically if the development project, again exceeding 8 dwelling units per acre, is in a qualified tax increment financing district that is established to eliminate blight. The third one is, as part of the resolution, certain properties were identified as qualifying as infill housing. And there's a map, I believe, perhaps next page of the resolution, but it specifically identifies those properties that would not be bound by that density restriction. And then there's other, if we could scroll back 1 page. And then the other exemptions relate to if it's part of a mixed use development project. So for example, if there's commercial, if there's institutional mixed in with the residential, then that project, regardless of where it's located, would also be exempted from that policy restriction. And then the final one is if the project is an adaptive reuse, then it would also not be included under that policy restriction. So basically the intent was to, identify those projects that would not be subject to the policy restriction. And the bottom part of that section 1 was to specifically identify what kinds of development projects would be considered multifamily. So if somebody's doing a duplex or attached housing, for example, townhouses or, some kind of special housing facility, a nursing home, those kinds of units would not be considered multifamily for the purposes of the comprehensive plan. The other change that we made was to revise the basic description of what is referred to as mixed residential on the future land use map. It was felt that densities of up to 9 dwelling units per acre were appropriate, and that would be it. And basically that was intended to clarify what kinds of properties would be considered that residential category. And in section 3 is the actual map again that shows those specific infill properties that were identified. And I believe, you know, those are the changes as recommended by the Plan Commission to the Village Board. And now the Village Board obviously is holding the public hearing to accept public comment.
Is there any public comment? Anybody would like to speak on this item?
Mike Zai. As this project moves along, potential project, I should say, my personal feelings are I'd rather see condominiums than rental property. We're pretty, it seems to me, out of balance with home ownership in the community. And then I don't know, and maybe the attorney can answer this right now, how much power do you have? Just say you approve whatever he wants per units per acre. How much power does the village board have on requiring nice sidewalks so this place looks really nice, whatever we end up with? Architectural design, how much influence can you, I don't want us to get to a point where this guy has free reign, he can build anything he wants, so that before we get to that point, so that's...
Mike, I may want to clear this up. This is not about a single individual project. This is really just a change in our comprehensive plan as a whole. Okay. It doesn't identify any kind of individual project whatsoever with this at all.
Okay. So, talking these 6 sites? Talking about those 6 sites, or are we talking general, any site?
Those are in exemption to the AR9 that was identified in that comprehensive plan as listed. Right on that one, Tim?
So the Chester Burns property, both the current building and the vacant property to the east, those are both identified as infill development. So again, those would be excluded from the policy restriction on the proportion of single family to multifamily.
What does infill mean?
It was basically a way of identifying, you know, certain properties that it was felt that it would be appropriate to have, you know, potentially multifamily at the appropriate density on those properties.
But Tim, they're still subject to the density requirements under AR9, correct?
They are, and as the village president indicated, you know, this is only a change to the comprehensive plan that applies broadly, but it certainly does affect the Chester Burns property in and of the fact that it is identified as infill development. Because it is of infill development, then multifamily could happen on that property, regardless of the policy on the restriction of single family to multifamily.
You?
I'm back. Barb Holtz here. So my question is this: if that is excluded, the Chester Burns property is excluded from that restriction,
So is it up to the board and the planning commission if multifamily structures are gonna be built there, apartments and designs eventually? Is that up to you guys to make that decision?
Yes, between the planning commission and the village board,
Okay.
yes.
And so you would have the choice to make that smaller development at the Chester Burns property? Possibly. I know I can see it being developed, but not as large as, I read in the paper. So, I can see, cottages or, duplexes or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. But,
Just in clarification of the Chester Burns property and, a development that everybody talks about that was in the paper, that was a proposal that was presented during citizen participation.
right,
There is no formal, identification of a project happening within that area at this point,
right.
and nothing at this point that the planning commission is considering, because there isn't anything that has been presented as of yet.
Okay. So then the zoning proposal coming October 11th, that's for multifamily proposal for that property. So then would it be up to, so by voting for this and saying, yes, let's expand East Troy in the downtown area of East Troy, will that have an effect on, will this decision today have an effect on that decision, October 11th?
So I just want to clarify what President Seeger just said. That individual did submit an application to rezone that property to AR9 to get that on the October 11th Plan Commission. It is pending approval of this ordinance. So I just wanted to be clear that there was something submitted, but what he said is correct, that they simply made some statements at citizen participation. It wasn't a formal application or.
And if I could just jump in and kind of build on that. So basically, the petitioner through the school board has applied to rezone the property to AR9. And that would allow multifamily at a density of 9 units per acre. And that's going to be, reviewed at the next month's Plan Commission meeting. He has also started the process for essentially seeing if additional density could be done, and that would be done through the Plan Development District process. And that is a 3-step process. And he has, and the Plan Commission will be reviewing the concept plan at the next month's, at the October Plan Commission meeting. So there's going to be 2 things on the agenda again for the Plan Commission meeting next month. The first is to rezone the property to AR9, and then to review his concept of his proposed multifamily development through the plan development process. And just to clarify one more point is that concept.
Tim, this is Tim Pruitt. I kind of feel like we're going off agenda here. The public hearings on the comp plan amendment. And while I understand that everybody's interested in these potential developments that might be impacted by this particular change, I guess the information that you're giving is useful. Will people have an opportunity to present their concerns and ask questions about a particular development as it comes forward at a later time?
The short answer is yes, and I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to think that nothing was coming forward, when in fact we will be reviewing things at the next month's meeting, and that's my only point.
This still is a public hearing. If anybody had any comments. I think we'll close the public hearing at this point. Village Board?
I will make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-09.
The discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. All right, resolution 2021-21, consider creating a new ward based on 2020 census.
Hi. So we got the census information. It's been processed through the county. On the 14th, they presented to their county board the supervisory districts. The Village of East Troy is remaining in one supervisory district, only the Walworth County Supervisor 1. So that being said, it made our job a little bit easier to move forward quickly with the redistricting plan because we are on a very shortened timeline due to the delay in getting the census information out. This goes to the point that we need to get our elections ready for next year already in November and December. So they need to have these districts finalized and processed throughout the entire state. With the Village of East Troy, we had 5 wards, and one ward had increased to the point where it had gone over the 1,000 person limit. So basically, I took that one ward and split it into 2. So both of those now have 500 to 600. Both of those have some room for growth in the future. So it was very, very simple. And the map was included, both the current map as well as the new map. So you can see the new ward that was created. This is the new one. So Ward 3 is basically kind of like Main Street, that lighter pink, and it goes down to Honey Creek. We use Honey Creek as the dividing line for Ward 6, and that goes from Honey Creek to the southern boundaries of the village.
Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but this basically affects the elections in the village pertaining to Walworth County, correct?
It doesn't really affect anything because the entire village is represented by Walworth
But I'm
County.
saying, the point I was making though is that we do not elect the supervisors according to wards or anything like that.
No, we're all in the same county supervisory district, we're all in the same school district, and our board members all serve at large. But it is a distribution of population that we are required to do by state.
Motion to approve resolution 2021-21.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
you. Moving on to reports. Jason, verbal update on Main Street Square project on Church Street.
So we've made some pretty good progress the last couple of weeks. I'm sure most of you saw the asphalt surface went down west of the square today, so that's complete. Probably going to see some striping late in the week. If Mother Nature holds out tomorrow, they'll be paving the surface on the 4-lane to the east of the tracks, and then Wednesday west of the tracks. So surface will be done both sides of the square. Water main is complete. That's done. They're working on storm sewer in the square now. Almost all the removals are done in the square, and they're putting the pipe in. Currently, they're running 2 crews downtown, which is great because that'll make it happen faster. We're scheduled to start curb 2 weeks from today downtown. So the plan is to get all the curb in and then get the binder course of asphalt in to make it start to come back together. And they're starting restoration on east and west as well, the lawn restoration. So and they'll be starting signs as well. So come along in the last couple weeks. Church Street, so they did procure a second contractor, concrete contractor, so there's gonna be some work happening in parallel with the square, so that's good for our finish date. But the next step there's some sanitary sewer lining that's gotta be done yet, and then they are going to be doing the rest of the asphalt removal and start grading for curb.
Do they have to do storm sewer out there yet too?
There is a little bit of storm sewer work.
The concrete pipe is laying out there?
Yes, on Church Street.
I know on the square, some of the business owners were saying that now that there's not a sidewalk, some people are pulling almost all the way up to the windows. And I joked that there was a couple of places with signs that they thought it was covered parking. But I don't know if we should put some basic markers or something out there because we don't want somebody to get that close.
I can talk to the contractor about maybe placing some barrels in the area where the curb used to be.
How about Parks and Rec minutes from 8-9? Any questions? Booth Lake minutes from 7/21. How about emergency services from 7/27? Airport minutes from
Sorry, I had a question on the emergency services. Sorry, John, on the third page I have there, they were talking about the firefighting foam. And I guess the only question I have, they called McGuanago out, McGuanago helped them out. And instead of reinventing the wheel, why can't they just kinda go with what McGuanago had? That was my only question.
Sure, I'll use my mic too. If I remember right, it had to do with the type of foam that we still had. And it wasn't like new foam that's coming in, and we couldn't quite use that old foam for some reason.
Yeah, I was at that meeting. I don't know why I was at that meeting, but I was at that
That's right, yeah,
Did it
yeah.
contain the PFAS?
Yeah, you were at that meeting.
What's that?
Did it contain PFAS?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
But I guess I was reading in here where they were saying it was coming out like Jell-O, it wasn't working, the new foam that they had wasn't working right.
The new foam doesn't
And
work right.
my question was, why reinvent the wheel, just go to McGuanago, see what they use, because obviously theirs has been successful.
It's equipment related.
Ah.
It's equipment related. Our equipment doesn't work well with the new foam. So they're looking at options.
About airport minutes from 7/12. Municipal court reports from May to August.
I'd like to see the receipts higher than the disbursements.
How about the August financial report?
Yes, I did. I had two of them, I'm sorry, but the financial planning services, were kinda high, and the building inspection. Now, those are revenues or expenditures?
So building inspection is proportionately gonna be higher in revenues and expenditures because they receive 75% of the permit amount and the village, keeps 25%. So in the revenues, you're gonna see 100%, and on the expenditures.
Okay, so in revenues, is it's under licenses and permits?
I believe it is under
Okay.
licenses and permits category. I can give you a
I
detail.
see, I just see that that's up 140%, so
Yeah.
I figured that was it.
Yeah, and then, I'm sorry, what was the other question?
The,
Oh,
yeah.
financial planning services. I think I might have covered this in my last report. If not, I need to do a budget amendment with that. I'm gonna be coming to the board for some budget amendments. The problem is that project from 2020 carried over into 2021, so it was kind of a double whammy, because we have 2020 services we're paying for and 2021.
Thank you.
Any questions about library board minutes from 8/10? Booth Lake minutes from 8/18.
I have a question. Joe, I have a question.
Thought I was gonna
Sorry.
get away.
You thought you were gonna get away. They were talking down about the middle of the last paragraph before unfinished business, that there was a storeroom key that didn't work, you had to replace the lock. Now, is that a padlock or is that a normal,
Just a doorknob.
it's a doorknob?
Yeah, doorknob.
Okay, and can I make a suggestion? You don't have to call a locksmith to replace.
Too late. We already
Huh?
called, too late.
Okay, well,
30
next
seconds.
time though, you can call somebody, a contractor, anybody.
Call you?
It takes about 20 minutes to change a doorknob.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so, anything from the planning commission minutes? Does anyone have any questions for 40?
Should have been more prepared to ask you.
All right, make a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation which is likely to become involved, and 1985 1E for the purpose of conducting other specified public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Dam impoundment area. Possible amendment to the intergovernmental agreement for emergency services. Roll call vote, please.
Alexander? Yes. Trustee Johnson? Yes. Trustee Nugent? Yes. Trustee Renucci?
Yes.
Trustee Smalley? Yes. Trustee Wisniewski? Yes. President Seeger?
Yes.